welcome to another splendiferous episode of the Magic Morning Wood. I am, as always, your host, Ron, and with me is
Clive Davis. What was that word you just used there, Ron?
splendiferous.
Oh, splendiferous. I thought you said wondiferous.
Wondiferous. Oh,
Yeah.
that's the come on, that word doesn't exist. Break.
No. I didn't use a proper dictionary word like you did because I'm not that clever.
Actually, I thought I was making up splendiferous too. I've heard people use splendiferous, but I think it doesn't actually exist.
I don't think so, no. But it does exist here. So
right.
Yeah.
In the wood. In
yeah.
The magic.
We're all about being splendiferous.
That's right. So anyway, welcome everyone to the podcast.
Another great intro.
How's it going?
Yeah.
I'm making me self-conscious. How's it going?
How are you, Ron? I'm fine.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Very good.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, got that out of the way. Nice job.
Until next time on the Magic Morning Wood.
All right, so we are reacting to the General, which was our last episode, where the General starring the Western film. So we both chose movies which using our algorithm, as Clive likes to call it, choosing movies that react to that same movie.
Yes.
So we both chose reactions to the General. So I went with the 1999 movie called Ride with the Devil. Yeah, Ride with the Devil, which is the link, the connective tissue, if you will, being that it's a movie about the Civil War from the point of view of the Confederate side.
Yes, more or less. Yes, that's right. And
well, ostensibly.
Yes, and only 149 minutes long. Great.
Yeah. Well, look at the person now complaining about how long movies are. So yes, and I think I found it impossible to actually say this title out loud without singing it like the Motley Crue song "Shout at the Devil." So I cannot say this movie without saying "Ride, ride, ride with the devil." I don't.
Okay. Oh dear. I thought it couldn't get any worse after watching this film, but it does.
Yeah.
Motley Crue.
I'm not even really sure why they called this movie "Ride with the Devil." Do you?
Well, I kind of get the
It was based on a book. I assume the book was called the same thing, right? So
no, the book is called Woe to Live On.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was the same name.
By Daniel Woodrell, who's the guy who also wrote the book that Winter's Bone was based on.
Okay, right.
Which was a film I quite liked. I remember liking Winter's Bone when it came out. Did you see Winter's Bone?
I think so, but I can't remember if I did or not.
Early Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, I remember it being the early Jennifer Lawrence, and I remember about it, but I can't remember if I saw it or I thought I saw it or I was thinking about seeing it or I saw something that was similar to it. There's another movie around that time that also had bones in the title. I think I might have mixed up with each other.
Ah, okay. Yes, because you watch a lot of those other adult films, and they've got a bone in the title.
Bone. Wah, wah, wah.
And I'm sure that there must have been a porno parody of Winter's Bone with a Jennifer.
Oh yeah,
right?
undoubtedly.
Yeah. Winter's Boner. It was probably called, in fact, something. Yeah.
You've missed your calling. You should have been a porno title writer.
So did you? So I actually attempted to read Woe to Live On. I grabbed a Kindle.
Okay.
And I read about half of it, and it wasn't bad. It quite a well-written book actually, but it was just, I don't know. We'll get into this as we talk about the film a little bit. I kind of have a slight problem with stories based in this era of the Civil War. I think.
Why is that?
Well, I'm not sure, and we'll see if we can uncover it together. I don't really know why, but so did you watch Ride with the Devil when it was new, or
I actually had never heard of it. I'd never heard of it in the first place. 99. See, where was I in 99? I was just finishing up my undergrad degree. So I think I was otherwise I was like I was think I was writing my undergrad thesis. So I think I was otherwise involved, and I think I was kind of not really in touch with the movies. Was it a really big movie, or was it kind of like a? I mean, it's got a huge cast, but a lot of them are sort of like um one of those sort of like young and up and comer actors before, it's got like, Tobey Maguire pre Spider-Man, and a bunch of other, Jonathan Rhys Meyers
Skeet Ulrich.
Skeet Ulrich, before Jim Caviezel, before pre Jesus, I think, right? So
who was pre Jesus?
Jim Caviezel. I don't know how.
All right, yeah, okay. Yeah.
How you pronounce his name? Caviezel.
Yeah, I think they'd all kind of been about for a bit, but yeah, they had yet to maybe have a hit on their hands, right? I mean,
Jonathan Brandis pre-death.
I
think you're right, pre Westworld. So
yeah, Jeffrey Wright is probably the one who's
stands out in this movie.
Well, yeah, that, but also he seems to be the one
more reasons than one, right?
With the most kind of like, I don't know, how could I say it? Like a career path that seems a lot more steady. Like, I don't know if Jeffrey Wright's ever become a household name for anything, but he's always solid, and he's always glad to see Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah. Okay, Jeffrey Wright. Okay, it'll be
yeah, but people might not recognize the name, but they'd recognize the face, right? So
right.
That guy,
actually, I barely recognized. I mean, I'm quite familiar with Jeffrey Wright. I was a big fan of the Westworld TV show, so I was familiar with him from there. But I only took me probably an hour into the movie before I realized him, because he was 25 years younger, so he looks a little bit different at first. He's sort of got shitty clothes and stuff. So it's hard to, it was hard for me to recognize. But once I was like, okay, it's Jeffrey Wright, I was like, I feel like that looks like him. But so I was, but yeah, so there's a lot of like kind of like sort of now relatively famous people who are sort of kind of pre-famous or just up and coming at that time.
That bloke who became the Mentalist, I forget his name, but him as well, right? He's
okay, yeah. His name is lots of character. Tom Wilkinson pops up there, and
yeah, isn't it briefly towards the end, isn't he? And
Margot Martindale before she's really big in the Handmaid's Tale these days and stuff. So it's
so did you know who? Because the one I was wondering, who's that? Because I don't know her music at all. Did you know who Jewel was?
So yes, so actually that was the clincher why I chose this movie, because so yes, I was a little familiar with Jewel from 90s pop.
I'd never heard of her in my life. I have to.
Oh, really? Never heard of like "Who Will Save Your Soul"? Yeah, she was. She had like a like big hits in like the mid 90s.
Okay.
She's been had a couple of hits kind of mid to late 90s, and then I haven't heard from her in years. I
might have heard
she's still making music.
Didn't know who the artist was because I wasn't interested or whatever, but I might know those songs if sung by someone who can carry a tune.
But thanks.
But going by your rendition there, it's not ringing any bells.
Well, look it up. "Who Will Save Your Soul" was a really big hit for her back in the 90s. So
if I had to hazard a guess and bet money on it, I bet I'm not going to like it. So I probably.
Well, I don't think it's your kind of music. No, it's like she's a singer-songwriter, like her and her guitar. Kind of really kind of like
country rock pop kind of
not really that. It's more like again, it's like singer-songwriter, so it's like her and her guitar, kind of like soft and melodic, and she's got a pretty voice and stuff, but never acted before. Right, so that's why when I was looking up, okay, I'm interested in watching. I mentioned when we were watching The General about like how it was interesting that they decided to make him a Confederate, fighting on the Confederate side rather than the Union side. So I was like, I wonder if there's more movies like this, viewing this kind of battle from the Confederate side.
Right.
And I did a search for that, and this one came up as the number one as being the most accurate and most apparently. and also starring Jewel. And I was like, starring Jewel? So I was like, okay, I got to see this. So that's why I was like, okay, I want to go with this one. So, and apparently she was cast. I don't know, did you read this?
Because of her
This
crooked teeth.
because of her teeth,
Yeah.
which sounds like bullshit to me. But
To
so
be
apparently
fair,
she says that
I,
Ang Lee, Ang
uh,
Lee cast her because she had crooked teeth, which might have been teeth that someone in that time period might have had, right? And but of
right.
course you never see her teeth that close, the close up.
Oh,
I
I didn't
I was
know.
even looking for the crooked teeth and I couldn't even see them. So it was, I feel like I think Ang Lee just wanted her to take her boob out that one time when she was breastfeeding the baby. Right?
Her crooked boob. To
Yeah,
be fair as well, she's actually not bad. I mean, I didn't know who she was from Adam, but
yeah, she was.
I suppose in this case, but I didn't think she gave a bad performance.
Yeah, she was,
As good as
considering
anyone
she's
else.
not an actress. She was fairly decent. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so in answer to your question, I think it probably was, again, I was a little bit not really plugged in exactly to the greater culture at this time because I was moving about and a lot of things as well.
Right.
But yeah, I think so because it would have been Ang Lee and his regular screenwriter James Schamus as well. And like you said, this cast was attached to it. And it's a Criterion collection
Yeah.
release now, which surprised me. But then again, I suppose Armageddon's on the Criterion collection. Right? So
Yeah,
I'm not sure if they actually have a proper vetting process anymore.
is it?
Yeah. But yeah, I think it probably was I think it was one of those films that got accolades, you know, like
right.
riveting, the Daily Platoon, or beautiful, you know, authentic, that kind of shit on the poster, right? And lots of stars, and I can imagine it was one of those kind of films.
Oh,
while
okay.
in theaters,
I'm actually
people slept through it. I think is
right. I think I'm looking now, and I'm realizing now that probably the reason I didn't hear much about it was that it looks like it was a huge flop. Actually,
already.
I didn't realize it. Yeah. Well, according to IMDb, the budget was 38 million, and it only made like $635,000 or something.
Wow.
Yeah, so it looks like it must have been a giant loss for the studio, which may have been why no one heard anything about it. So it's, yeah.
But I think it probably still
worldwide gross was $635,096. So
I think it still probably got its director some kudos though, because you know, just a few years later they hired him to do Hulk, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's the thing. Also, it has so Tobey Maguire pre-Spider-Man and Mark Ruffalo pre-Hulk, not Ang Lee's Hulk, but the other Hulk, right?
Right.
So,
yeah. Ang Lee's superior. I like Ang Lee's Hulk. I don't care what.
Yeah, I liked it too. Yeah. So, but
I actually Ang Lee. I'm actually not that up on my Ang Lee. I've never seen Brokeback Mountain. I've never seen Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. I seem to have seen
saw Brokeback Mountain.
Worst films, but
I saw kind of notes of the kind of the genesis of Brokeback Mountain in this movie. I think I got the impression that the two main characters, you know, Tobey Maguire and Skeet Ulrich, he wanted to go there with them. I think he wanted. I got kind of like a little bit homoerotic vibes, a little bit, that he wanted them to have some sort of romantic relationship, and maybe was dissuaded from doing so. But I saw him almost like it was almost planting the seeds for what would become Brokeback Mountain. I thought a little bit so, but I mean, that was just my take. I was like, because a couple of times I was like, oh, this feels like Brokeback Mountain. I was like, oh yeah, right. Ang Lee did Brokeback Mountain too, so it felt similar to me. So
Brokeback Mountain, I'm not saying it's a contemporary Western though, isn't it? It's not a Civil War era Western or a historical.
No, it's contemporary. Yeah. So
right. Yeah, and of course, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I remember liking Life of Pi, but then unfortunately, he also made that fucking Will Smith film Gemini Man.
Gemini Man, isn't that the one where he's like a twin or something?
Fuck, I can't even remember what yeah, something like. I actually saw it in the theater though, because my friend insisted on seeing it in the theater because it was that one where they projected it at like 70 frames per second or something, right?
Oh, okay.
There was only one theater in Japan that was showing it like that, and it just looks things projected at 70. It doesn't feel cinematic. They're too realistic. It's weird, weird effect. It's like the fight scenes in Gemini Man. It looks as if you're watching behind the scenes footage of them shooting the fight scenes, if you see what I mean.
Right, yeah.
Like it, yeah, from a technical perspective, I suppose it's
Like
you know,
it's the
it's
quality's too good.
yeah, it's there's no.
I found that
I heard the Hobbit films had a similar problem when they were shot at. Yeah, they were 70 frames per second as well, right? I think.
I found that when I first got my 4K TV,
Mm.
some shows like look like it was like I can see their makeup. You know what I mean? Like I can see
Yeah,
their pores and stuff. It's like it's like too much now, right? So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't need to see that, right? So
No, it's interesting actually. I've more and more. In general, I like to get the if there's a proper high definition remaster of something, I like to get that. But sometimes, depending on the film, you kind of want to back off a little bit and
right,
keep your old
right,
DVD or something, right?
right, yeah. So
Uh,
anyway, so you, I guess it's safe to say that you were not a fan of this
oh
film.
God, I remember seeing it when it was new. I think I just saw it on video, and I didn't remember much about it other than it was, yeah, very worthy Oscar bait kind of
Uh,
tedious
but I
fare.
don't think it was ever actually nominated for any Oscars or any awards at all, to be honest.
Right, and nothing's improved in the intervening 23, 24 years, I have to say. I mean, I, again, it's not, and it's shot by Frederick Elm, so it looks great. It looks too nice, actually. It looks a little bit too shiny and nice for the subject. So the book is very much in that sort of revisionist history, kind of grim, dark, kind of violent look at it, a little bit like something like Blood Meridian. It's not as dark as Blood Meridian, the Cormac McCarthy book, but it's kind of in that kind of tradition. But it felt a little bit to me a bit forced, like almost like it's pastiche or something. But then watching the film, I wanted some. I wish they'd gone that route because it's a bit shiny happy REM, isn't it, for this kind of story?
Uh,
What do you think?
yeah, yeah. I think. I mean, I think I liked it a little more than you did. I thought it was a fine watch. It didn't feel like a slog to me. I mean, even though it was 2 hours and 18 minutes. But
Didn't find it too long?
I mean, they could have trimmed it, but I didn't. I mean, I watch everything in kind of like short chunks anyway because of
Oh, okay.
my life. So I think it's easier to digest if you take it in little chunks anyways,
Yes.
than all in one sitting. But and the I thought the cinematography was really nice. I agree. I think it was too clean. I think I
Yes.
mean like if these people are living in in the literally in the woods in the middle of the Civil War, I mean they would be just so disgusting. It would be so
Yeah.
dirty.
Yeah.
They haven't bathed in months, right? So it's just
That's the
so
feeling you
it's
get from the book as well. We
right.
probably should mention just quickly to get it out of the way. So it's basically a story about
Oh yeah, right,
the bushwhackers, right? So
right.
these would have been guerrilla fighters on the Confederate side. So they're not enlisted soldiers, but they would sneak into Union territory, sometimes in disguise and stuff, and basically under the cover of this comes out more strongly in the book than in the film. They're almost kind of like they're not even soldiers of fortune. They're more like just using the war as a kind of as a cover for committing crimes.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, they're
and then
just
the
they say that they're
Jayhawkers.
fighting for
Yes,
their beliefs and the side by but not they didn't actually enlist in the military. They're just sort of like, okay, let's go kill a bunch of people and we'll say we're doing it for our country or
yeah,
whatever.
they're
Right? So
taking advantage, and in the
yeah,
book as well, they kind of mentioned that the Jayhawkers are kind of doing the same thing, but under
for
this
the other the
pretense
Union side.
of saving the slave. Yeah, but particularly saving the slaves, and there's this quite interesting perspective when they're saying, well, whenever they've seen Jayhawkers, with their so-called freed slaves, all their slaves are carrying all their equipment for them and treated no better
Right,
if they were,
right.
So, so, so this brings me to again. This is a little bit. This is no one's fault but my own, right? So I'm not. But I just thought it's worth mentioning because this is my genuine. So let's see if we can try and figure it out.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm a bit of a history buff. I'm kind of interested in almost all.
Uh-huh.
There's certain areas of history which are of more or less interest for whatever reason, right? And the thing is, with the American Civil War is potentially there's so much of interest there, and it's such an important, epochal point for American history and world history, and the whole thing about fighting for the slaves, but also on the other hand, well, it's quite interesting, the whole thing about, well, well, yeah, okay, fair enough, but how dare you come and kind of force your worldview on me? And some
Right.
people would argue that, some people would say, because even though, the North won and slavery was abolished, there was like another 100 years of like this whole Jim Crow period before the civil rights in the 60s. So some people would argue, well, if we hadn't fought the war and made the point, then maybe that would never have happened. And then other people would argue, well, if you hadn't pushed the point, we might not have had so many people killed, and maybe we would have reached that point quicker, even, because you wouldn't have got the Confederates back up, right? It was always like a stubborn kind of, I don't know.
I don't think that's true, but
I don't know.
I assume
no
that they
expert.
could say that, but
I'm no expert, but it's interesting that there are, because the people who
I sort of equate it with the current gun the debate, right, about guns, right? So
right.
I think it's sort of everyone in the world can see that Americans need to just stop using so many guns. I think it's sort of an obvious thing for everybody, right? But it's the same thing. It's like, no, you can't take our guns. I think it's the same thing. No, you can't take our slaves, right? So I think I don't think they were ever going to back down, right? So
well, maybe, but it's kind of interesting because, I mean, if you're going to make a comparison as well, I mean, in more recent years, I've come to slightly, I'm all for obviously what they're currently doing isn't working. But on the other hand, I do have a certain sympathy for people want to get, like, I kind of get where they're coming from, right? I kind of get, well, you come for guns 1 minute and then, how are we going to, I'm
right.
It's not entirely alien, the viewpoint. I
Right.
kind of get it, but even though at the end of the day, the end result, is probably is not doing anyone any good, right?
Right.
But anyway, regardless of your viewpoint on the intricacies, and people who know a lot more than us would be able to argue that all day long, but there's so much tied up in it, right? So it should be fascinating. But for some reason, I always tune out. I've tried a number of times and watched all sorts of movies, started to read books about just the Civil War in general. And for some reason, at a certain point, I just tune out. The closest I've got recently on the other YouTube video, me and Nick were doing a book about the history of ballooning. And there's a chapter in there on how ballooning was used during the American Civil War. And I found that fascinating. And I thought, I finally found like my in. Like now I'm kind of interested in the Civil War because of this ballooning aspect. But take the balloons away and I've kind of lost interest again. And I don't know what it is. It's just it's not a period of history that fascinates me, even though I feel as if I should be really interested to read about it and find out more about it. And I mean, recently you've been forced against your will to look up a Civil War history.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, because I've been recently studying the Civil War because I had to do an American history test, a standardized test for this other job I'm trying to get. So I've had to learn the Civil War from the ground up because I never learned it in school or anything. So I've been studying. It is a very interesting period of history. I find it kind of interesting. So I'm surprised that you're not more interested in it, because I think it is a very and but do you think that maybe your lack of interest in that time period equals your lack of interest in this movie?
That's a good question. I mean, it certainly didn't help, but no, I don't think that's. I can imagine a similar approach to another topic that I would be more interested in history. Choose whatever you like. It's just this style of very smoothed off kind of safe, worthy filmmaking. I think it's all a bit too pre-chewed and palatable, isn't it? Like compared to the book, there's like, for instance, the Tobey Maguire. I mean, this is as close as Hollywood gets to like doing unlikable characters, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was gonna get into that. I was like, I didn't hate the movie. I mean,
I
certainly
don't hate it. I don't
it's
hate
not my favorite movie of all time. But I mean, I didn't like, I wasn't like, oh fuck this movie. But I mean, I by the end of the movie, I did feel kind of unsatisfied because it cheated. It was a cheating movie, right?
it.
Because it decides to take people who are, I mean, when you come down to it, they're basically bad people, right? Because I mean, they're not only are they fighting for slavery, but they're doing it in a way that's basically that's illegal, right? And so they're also just doing it in a way that lets them just be
Right,
violent criminals, right? So
right.
they're basically violent criminals fighting for slavery. So I mean, in the, when you get down to it, it's hard to really make these likable people. And so,
Yeah.
how do they do that? Well, they give them a black best friend, right? So I think that was the one black guy fighting for slavery. I think was I think it's I mean I can't say that there weren't any. I'm sure
Oh, they
I
were.
mean I can
They were.
yeah yeah, and I'm sure that this was probably a story that was maybe based in fact or whatever, so that, but it was just so convenient that the one guy that we're supposed to root for that has sort of suspect motivations then becomes the black guy's best friend. Yes, I was like, well, that's, I mean, it's a cheat, right? I
It's
mean,
gone through the Hollywood machine for sure, and
yeah,
because that would be an interesting story. That the story from the point of view of
yeah,
Jeffrey Wright.
and that's it.
That
I
would be
think
fascinating.
I wanted to see Jeffrey Wright's character's
Yeah.
story. I wanted to see that character. Not, I mean, Tobey Maguire, fine, whatever. But I don't know. I don't know about your feelings of Tobey Maguire. I like Tobey Maguire when he's well cast, but I don't think he was well cast in this movie. I just find him a little bit kind of dopey, and I certainly don't. I never believe him when he has to be like really serious.
Yeah, same here. I was
Yeah,
half
I was.
expecting to don the Spider-Man costume and come swinging out of a tree. You know,
Yeah. He's
the
fine
same
as Spider. He's great as Spider-Man, but when, like in that scene when there's one scene where he's in like a saloon, and then the real bad guy who's Jonathan Rhys Meyers, who's really the violent criminal kind of guy that kind of is meant to be like the antagonist, even though he's basically doing the same thing as everybody else does.
Well, he's doing it, but looking like Jonathan Rhys Meyers. He's doing the Jonathan Rhys Meyers look, right?
Right. And so he comes in and he's like, I'm gonna kill this, this saloon or this restaurant owner. And he's like, no, you're not gonna touch him. And so he kind of stands up for this guy because he's eating his eggs. And then you're supposed to like, oh, like, whoa, go, Toby. But it was I laughed out loud a little bit because he's so unbelievable when he's being fierce, right? So it's just so I think he was kind of poorly cast. I in general in this part.
I think they missed
I mean,
the trick, by the way. I just realized if they'd have ever redone, the Wizard of Oz, Jonathan Rhys Meyers would have been a perfect Wicked Witch of the West.
well, he was. Didn't he play Lestat in like the Queen of the Damned or something? Wasn't he like a?
Oh, he was in. Yes, he might have been in. That was.
He played a good vampire. I think he's sort of a vampire-ish kind of guy. Right?
I'm sure he has done that at some point. Yeah.
So
more than once.
But anyway, so that's that. I mean, I think that generally the movie was fine. It was just sort of like it was, as you said, I think it was really, really Hollywood. It was like Hollywood. And also I don't know if you thought, I mean, it's so strange that this story was directed by Ang Lee, a Taiwanese film director. Like why did he feel the need to tell this story? Like what was his connection to this story? I don't know. It felt really strange. And also felt like a story that wouldn't really, maybe it needed to be a Taiwanese director, because I feel like an actual American probably wouldn't want to touch this story. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I only read half the book, but the thing I got from the book, at least halfway through it, was at least, even if the thesis of the book, which of course they neatly tie up in the which did make me roll my eyes at the end of the film. Someone actually says the line out loud, or is it, it ain't right and it ain't wrong, just is. And I thought, okay, that's like Meryl Streep going, don't! It's that moment, isn't it? But if that's the thesis of your film, which is fair enough, I get the feeling in the book it was a bit more like you were left up to reach that conclusion by yourself, and you see the main characters do horrendous things and act entirely unsympathetically, and then you're supposed to find the good in it yourself if it's there, right?
Right.
Whereas
right.
this is a bit more spoon-fed, right? So that
Right. Yeah.
Ruby
Yeah.
Riot's character has to be seen to, oh, don't shoot the woman, or all these little things, that, and you do wonder where that comes from. Does it come from his agents who are, well, Toby doesn't do, we don't,
Right.
or is it just in general kind of backing off of showing anyone in a bad light, or it's just it's very bland, isn't it? And kind of
Yeah, I mean, I think I was more forgiving. I just sort of like I kind of enjoyed the story, and there's like they of course they had to kind of shoehorn a love story in there as well, and and so I mean it was I mean doing my Oscar watch every year, it felt like an Oscar watch movie,
I was
right?
gonna
Even
say,
though it was never nominated for anything, you did say
no,
that it felt like any number of kind of like Hollywood movies
yes,
that's good turned out kind of thing. But so it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't terrible for me because I sit through tons of these types of movies. But yeah,
right,
I agree. It felt a little bit like it definitely felt unsatisfying by the end. But and I get where they were going at. But I think I guess I really want to see the movie where it's like, I want to see the movie that has the balls to say that, okay, well, I want to tell this from the Confederate side of view and have you root for the Confederates. I want to see
yeah.
them try
Actually,
that.
say yeah, and tell us why because
Yeah.
it wasn't all this half the country suddenly turned into mustache twirling villains, right? Like they
Well,
justified
yeah,
it to themselves.
yeah. I mean, they did have. I mean, definitely they were fighting for a bad thing and the wrong thing, but they had motivations
Right,
that
right.
I'm sure people can actually still connect with in some level these days, as you said about the gun thing, right? You were saying earlier, right? So I would like to see them try to really make a Confederate side movie where you're like, okay, I kind of get what they're doing.
Yeah,
I don't agree with them, but I kind of understand it. But this was really basically, it was almost like Toby's character was only doing this because his friend did it. I mean, the motivation they gave him was because his friend's dad was killed by a Jayhawker, so we must join the other
yeah.
side.
They
I
weighted
mean,
it
so
differently from the book. They
yeah,
put more
yeah.
emphasis on, yeah.
It was differently in the book.
Well, it's all there, but like I said, it's all slightly like they've you can tell they've deliberately picked, like, well, what's the more sympathetic way we can tell it? Like, it's not as if there's not anything in this film that isn't in the book, but it's just it's the dosage is different, right? They've
Right, yeah. So it
presented it.
picks out like it's like, well, of course he's joined the Bushwhackers because they killed his friend's dad. But and he's reading these letters to the African, the Jeffrey Wright's character, and he's reading lines like, like, why would people want to take away their liberty and stuff like that, and he's kind of like, side eyes as
Right,
Jeffrey Wright's character, right? So you can tell he feels bad for him. He always stands up. He becomes the black character's friend, and he stands up for the little guy. So he's basically a Union, but just working on the wrong side because he kind of felt stuck, kind of thing, right? So a Unionist, right? So
right.
it's which is why I think it was kind of a cheat, right? So that's why.
Yeah, I agree with you. And even more specifically, I mean, there were slaves who kind of, for whatever reason, sided with what would have been called their masters at the time to fight. Now that's an interesting story as well. Like,
sure,
tell us about those guys. That would be fascinating.
I'd watch that movie, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like I mentioned there's one character, she's a small part in this movie, Margot Martindale. She plays like the kind of the nanny. She kind of like helps her. She's gonna So anyway, so she's in the show The Handmaid's Tale. Have you seen The Handmaid's Tale at all?
I saw some episodes of it and then
okay. Anyway, so she's in The Handmaid's Tale, and she's basically kind of that character. I mean, the whole premise is that in The Handmaid's Tale is that it's the sort of religious sort of fanatics, sort of extremists take over America, and then basically subjugate women to like the point of like basically just like they're there to breed and to cook and
thank God that'll never happen, and they'll never overturn Roe vs. Oh, hang on. Oh shit.
but anyway, Margot Martindale is in this show, and she plays like the woman who supports this this sort of what do you call it, like a not a the
Oppression, the oppressive side,
the oppression, yeah, the oppression, sorry, the I'm blanking on the word right now. Not it sounds like prestige, but not prestige, but the anyway, so she supports them. So she's basically the woman who's for suppression of women, right? I mean, so and so she makes you so angry, and you really want to know about her character, like what makes you do this. Why would you take this role? Why would you assume this role? And so yeah, I mean, I really want to know about those Black people who supported slavery. I mean, I want to know about that, right? So I think that's
it is an interesting. It is an interesting, and
why
off the top of my head, and I can't think of a film that did. I mean, there probably is. I'm sure there must be at least one or two, but I'm not overly. I can't think of one with that as a because it would be fucking dynamite to touch as well. Right? I mean,
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Especially
in today's climate. So, but yeah, but I think Ride with the Devil. I mean, I read some reviews and it said that it was apparently the most accurate. It was a very accurate Civil War movie, apparently, despite the fact that it seemed very kind of clean, as you said. But I think apparently there was a lot of accuracy, and I mean there's some good battle scenes. There's good cinematography. It was directed adequately. It was acted fine. The script was okay. I think it was all the elements were there. It was just a little bit yeah, I mean, sort of vanilla, I guess, right? or a little bit. It just felt, it just cheated a bit. So that's why it's sort of, I felt a little bit unsatisfied by the end. But yeah, cheating. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's anything else you want to add about Ride with the Devil?
No, I'm not riding with the devil anymore. I'm riding with Ron and moseying over to our Cook. That's a segue. Whoa! Don't let the devil ride. Whoa, no. Don't let the devil ride. And if you let him ride, he gonna wanna drive. Don't let him ride. Whoa, don't let him ride with you. Whoa, no, don't let him ride with you. And if he ride with you, he gonna tell you what to do. Don't let him ride. Don't let him flag you down. Whoa, no. Don't let him flag you down. And if he flag you down, he turn your soul around. Don't let him ride. Whoa. Don't let him hold your hand. Whoa, no. Don't let him hold your hand. And if he hold your hand, you got to join his band. Don't let him ride. Listen. Whoa. Don't let him be your bone. Whoa, no. Don't let him be your bone.
if he be your boss, he make you so get lost. Don't let him ride.
On to our second film,
Okay, is
which
it
doesn't have horses in.
right?
How's that?
Right. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, you have to think now if there was a horse in it.
I was trying to think, was there a horse? I feel like there was a horse. No.
Recall a horse, no. So anyway, so yes, my reaction to The General, I went another way. So The General was co-directed along with Buster Keaton by Clyde Bruckman, as was the 1935 film Man on the Flying Trapeze. In fact, I believe it was Bruckman's last film as a director, which he co-directed with its star, W.C. Fields, who stepped in, actually, because I think Bruckman had some sort of kind of alcohol problem. And that's saying something. If W.C. Fields steps in because the other guy has an alcohol problem, that's a serious alcohol problem, right?
Right.
Yes, so I chose this because, well, like I said, just my excuse for choosing it was the Clyde Bruckman connection. But the reason I chose this, because I could have gone all sorts of different ways, is specifically W.C. Fields, because I don't know that much about W.C. Fields. I'm not a huge W.C. Fields buff or anything, but slowly over the past few years, seeing a bit more of him here and there, seeing a film at a time, I've kind of quite warmed up to W.C. Fields' brand of comedy. And I'm quite interested to find out more about him and check out more of his work. So I thought I would use this as an excuse to do just that. How about you, Ron? Are you tall? Where are you with W.C. Fields?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I know, of course, I'd heard of W.C. Fields and I knew of him, but I don't think I've ever seen a W.C. Fields movie or project at all. And yeah, so I was, I sometimes I get them conflated with some other people, like I don't know, there's I don't know, other fat actors around that time. Like I sometimes I conflate them sometimes with Orson Welles, which is very different. I don't know if it's for some reason because I get like this sort of like and I was like, oh wait, it's not Orson Welles. Orson Welles is the serious guy. W. Fields is the and it totally I think I knew this in the past, so I totally forgot about it. But as I was watching this movie, it was an aha moment for me. I was like, oh, he's Porky Pig, of course, right? So yeah,
right.
And yeah,
right.
I didn't. I totally. I must have known about that someday in the past, but it just. And I was like, "Holy crap! This guy is Porky Pig." Oh, Porky Pig was based on W.C. Fields. Okay, I get it. I think I sort of clicked into place for me. So
I reckon there's a little bit of droopy in him as well. Actually,
yeah, maybe yeah, but definitely there's like one part where he's like, it's like, oh, it's Porky Pig. Yeah, so like it's I mean, I'm sure it was like a direct copy, right? So I don't know if W.C. Fields had any say in the matter, but it definitely was. And which led me to think, who is Bugs Bunny? Is that supposed to be like James Cagney? Like, yeah, like
I don't know. I'm sure there probably is. I don't know the answer to that question. There is
or Daffy Duck.
Who it is. I don't think.
Or is Daffy Duck someone too? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's a rabbit hole you can go down. And actually, I wouldn't be quite because I haven't. I used to watch those cartoons like all the time when I was a kid.
Yeah, of course, everyone did.
And I haven't watched them for a long time. I can imagine I'd have quite a good time going.
Yeah, I think they still hold up, actually, to be honest. So
right.
Yeah, so anyway, so yeah, that was a nice aha moment for me. So.
I'm sensing where your connection next time might go.
Oh no, I'm not going to choose Space Jam.
No, I didn't think that. Aren't there some? If I remember, aren't there some movies like Marvin the Martians in one of them? Isn't there like some full length like Looney Tunes type things? I seem to remember.
Maybe I don't think I'll choose a religion.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I doubt that, but yes, I see.
Looking forward to you doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So W.C. Fields does very much his W.C. Fields shtick here, which I suppose if you've never seen it before is the kind of hen-pecked kind of tired.
He was sort of
like
Rodney Dangerfield before Rodney Dangerfield.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just taking pleasure in sneaking a drink whenever possible, and just ignoring his wife, and
And
yeah.
he has a little bit. I saw a little bit of a connection to Buster Keaton in the physicality a little bit. Like, of course, Buster Keaton was much more of a physical comic, but I mean, W.C. Fields had a lot of physicality in his comedy, and there's a lot of the kind of like the we notice something as the audience. I think I mentioned this last time, where we see something happening, but he doesn't, and then he turns around and he kind of like has this kind of jump start. Whereas with Buster Keaton was still stone faced. He would kind of react to it, but then not react facially. W.C. Fields has the opposite, where she's like, like, kind of like.
Well, he does.
Sometimes.
So this film, I overall, the plot of the film is simplicity itself. It's basically W.C. Fields wants to get off work to go and watch a wrestling match. And so pretends, lies to his boss that his mother-in-law, this kind of horrible, happy of a woman, is dead. And then, basically word get, and they send wreaths to and his mother-in-law and his wife find out, and but it all ends up well in the end for W.C. It all comes rosy. I mean, you don't really need to go into the intricacies of the plot, but I will say, even though I overall enjoy, it's kind of even if it's not laugh out loud funny all the way through, it's kind of a pleasant watch, I found. Like, I quite enjoyed watching it, and the way it all came up roses for him in the end was kind of satisfying. But the first almost nothing, well, it's kind of kickstarts the story out, but the first like 20 minutes of this film, where some burglars break into the basement, and that stuff I thought was really, really funny. And the reason I thought that was funny was just because of W.C. Fields' he's almost lack of reaction, and he's so slow, right? Like his wife, oh, people in the basement, oh my god, they're singing in the basement, and he's like, oh yeah, what are they singing?
Yeah, he's rolling up his socks and so
and he's like, taking his time to roll his socks off. And like, he's very like, you can tell he's just winding his wife up. Like, like, why is he swatting his pillow with a fly swat?
I don't know what that was about, but it was funny though. She's like, come to bed. So he just like gives a fly swat and swats his pillow for no particular reason, but just to make noise, right? So
that persona of him, just as like, I've had enough, I don't care anymore. I thought that was actually laugh out loud. The first 15, 20, I mean, it's so surreal as well. Like, why are these burglars really taking their time, right? Drinking.
Well, they get down, they go to break into his house, but then find out he's got some, what do they call it? Applejack? Applejack. Basically, like, it's like the apple cider with the alcohol runoff. And then they find it, they start drinking, and they get drunk, and then they just stand in this basement singing for an hour.
Basically he's got like a still in his basement, doesn't he? And at the beginning of the film, he's like pretending to brush his teeth, but he's having some Applejack in the bathroom. What are you doing, Ambrose?
Was this during the Prohibition?
I'm trying to think. 35. Yes,
because when he gets arrested later in the movie, he's not arrested for having alcohol, he's just arrested for not having a permit.
Right, which I think counts for kind of the same thing, right?
Oh, okay, because I thought, well, is this Prohibition? I thought he would be just arrested for just having alcohol in general, but anyway, so I guess neither here nor there. But
so that stuff for me was the high. After that, it dropped a little bit, just in terms of, like, I was actively laughing out loud at the beginning, and then the rest I just was kind of had a bit of a smirk on my face, but I still enjoy, like, my appreciation of W.C. Fields grows as well, and I can imagine me maybe re-watching this at some point and having become more of a W.C. like enjoying it more, like a nice kind of like a comfortable old pair of slippers or something. It's got that kind of, it's not it's not breaking any mold or anything, but it's just it's a nice company to be in. It's a nice place to be. I kind of enjoyed it. How did you get on with the Man on the Flying Trapeze, which, by the way, in Japan is called Kabocha Salaryman or Pumpkin Salaryman.
What?
I
And
guess he's got a
that's as confusing of a title as the actual title. I don't know.
yeah, that's true. I guess he's
Yeah.
got a pumpkin face. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if all the WC fields when they came out to Japan were like kabochas and kabocha.
Kabocha something.
Kabocha, I don't know. But
Was he known as the Kabocha guy or something?
who
Maybe?
knows? Who knows?
Yeah. What? So, do you know why it was called the Man of the Flying Trapeze? I expected something to do with a circus or something, but there's
no idea.
It was very confusing to me. But okay. Anyway, yeah, I liked it quite a lot. Yeah. So as I said, I wasn't really familiar with WC Fields, but yeah, I quite enjoyed this film just as much as I enjoyed the general. It really made me kind of, oh right. So they had these kind of old timey kind of classic comedy actors, right? So I was like, okay, yeah, I even liked the second half more than you did. I really enjoyed the whole sequence with the car. I was really enjoying that whole sequence. There's a whole sequence where he's he's driving and this cop tells him to pull over to the side of the road. So he pulls over wherever the cop tells him to, and he says, and the cops gives him a ticket for whatever it was. I can't remember whatever the reason was. But and then as he's doing that, another cop comes up and gives him another ticket at the same time. So he's getting two tickets at the same time. And then he starts to try to pull away. Another guy comes up and gives him a ticket for parking next to the road, which is where the cop told him to do it in the first place. And then he says, okay, now leave. You're not supposed to park here. So and then he tries to leave. Another car pulls it behind him and he can't get out. And then so he's waiting for the other car to leave, and then the guy comes back, gives him another ticket, and then he ends up like hitting another car. It just went on and on and on about this sort of like comedy of errors of trying to get out of this parking space, and he's just getting like 10 tickets. I thought that was quite clever. It was really funny, little sequence and stuff, and it kind of gave me a PTSD flashback of the time that I got a really unfair parking ticket. Did I ever tell that story?
No.
Yeah. I was in Toronto. And I'd driven to Toronto, and I was trying to find a place to park my car, and I found this place, and I parked, and I was like, I feel like this might not be a no parking space, but I'm not sure. So I just got out of my car and walked like literally like 10 seconds away, just down the street, just looking up, trying to see if I could find a no parking sign. Finally found one, a little probably 20 meters down the road, like behind a tree. Like you couldn't see it actually because it's actually obscured by the tree. Turned around to get back in my car, and the cops had already jumped out and were already giving me a ticket. So it was basically like a parking trap, right? Yeah. And so I explained that I wasn't parking. I was just getting out to see if there was a no parking sign. And they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, no problem." And they ripped up the ticket, and then it got sent to me in the mail, and I had to pay it anyway. So it was. I remember being like, I still feel like righteous anger over that parking ticket. So this whole sequence kind of like flared my PTSD over that.
You were saying, "Oh, I got in my car because I couldn't see," and they're in the monologue. It's like, we know that's why we. That's
why we're hiding behind the bushes, waiting for you to get out of your car so we can give it to you, right? So.
Is it the same in Canada as here in Japan? Is there like a certain time of year? Like I think here it's like in winter because there's like a quota, right? Like, have you given enough tickets, or
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I'm sure it was a quota thing that they have to do.
They'll jump out the woodwork here, like towards the end of the year. Now you're all right. They're not nowhere to be seen. But inside because it's warm. And that's the other joke as well, is they never catch you doing anything when it's raining, right? And that kind of ties in a little bit now. Just I didn't mean to bring it up, but the thing with WC Phil, his appeal, I think, one part of his appeal is he's kind of like he's an everyman rebel. Like he's not a troublemaker, but he's really anti-authoritarianism, right?
But is he anti-authoritarian? Because I think that's kind of what made him so endearing. I found because I did find him quite endearing, which was surprising to me. I thought he was more kind of like a drunken lout was my impression of his character, but he isn't. He was a really he was super respectful, and even though he was being really henpecked and put upon and treated poorly, where anyone else would be like, "Hey, what the heck is going on here?" would get angry. He's just like, "Oh, okay, yeah, yes, okay, yes, sure, officer." And the fact that he was just sort of so
he's
politely going along with the henpecking I thought made him a lot more even just.
But I think he's undermining it, right, in his way. Right. That's the thing. I think that's the appeal, right? Is like he doesn't, but he'll rule the day in the end, kind of thing, right? So
Yeah, I guess.
and it does
Yeah.
turn out well for him. And also worth mentioning that when he goes to see the wrestling match, one of the wrestlers, he's difficult to tell, but I think it must be the one with the big beard that you can't see their face. It's Tor Johnson from Ed Wood movies.
Oh, okay.
That's Tor Johnson as the wrestler. So
Okay.
I already know what my reaction, because correct me if I'm wrong, you've never actually watched Plan 9 from Outer Space, have you?
I don't think I have. I may have seen clips of it, but I don't think I've seen the whole thing. So.
Then we're definitely doing Plan 9 from Outer Space. That's my because I think we'll have a ball talking about it, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really had a lot of goodwill to this movie. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. I was smiling all the way through. I thought it was really fun to watch. And he's it as you said, same thing. I sort of increased my respect for W.C. Fields, and I'm more interested in watching some of his movies in the future.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
And it is only 66 minutes, so you know.
Yeah, it was it was basically like a comedy show what you would see on TV, right? So it was like it was barely even a movie. So
there we go. We both enjoyed Kabocha Salaryman. So yeah, I guess that's us until we watch more soft vegetable businessman based fare on our next.
Isn't it a legume? I don't know, so.
Legume employee.
Or it's a gourd. Isn't it the category gourd?
Gourd, it could be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, more mysteries for us to unravel next time. So this was this edition of Magic Morning was. It wasn't wrong, it wasn't right, it just was.
Good.
とろろ食べている無双寺のブランコ主町夕立と一緒に記憶も昨日も死に損ない鈍器の自転車に秋の日万長者がギラリの花を探してる我もかの花なれば無職であろうと構わないかざして坂道を滅げるもよし学校を食べている無双寺の遊びはいかなるや夕立と一緒に記憶も昨日も死に損ない園児の素足に秋の日丼とろろ食べている無双寺のブランコ主町 夕立と一緒に記憶も昨日も死に損ない鈍器の自転車に秋の日